come, yo. Here they come. Here they come, yo. Here they come.
Ladies and gentlemen,
What up, everybody? Testing 1 2 1 2
1 2. Yeah.
What up? It's Friday, and it's the Here Goes Nothing podcast coming to you live. Here we go. That's what's up. That was right on time tonight, Rondu.
Perfect.
I like that. How you feeling, kid?
I feel good, man. Feel good. Real good.
We got a special show tonight.
Yeah, very important show, especially with this crazy ass summer going on right now.
So we turning up a notch, changing up a little bit. Tonight, you gonna get more than one guest. Not 2 guests, not 3 guests, but 4 guests. As tonight, we're going to try to launch a Zoom panel as we tackle the issues, which the subject matter will be mental health, youth violence in our communities. And tonight, we'll be being... Ooh, I messed that up. Excuse me, I get a little tired tongue every now and then. Testing everything out. Let me try to get all my names right.
Big shouts to my man Achille. Thank you.
Shout out to our Mixcloud fam. Do remember the stream is www.mixcloud.com/live/bricklayers every Friday at 10 p.m. The number to call is 786-531-9375. Jot that down. I'm sure you'll have some questions tonight. Go ahead and cut it up, Rondo. All right, looks like we have all our guests on the show ready to go. At about 10:15, we're going to kick off the discussions and introduce everybody. Trying to send the link out to everybody. Let the world know, tell a friend to tell a friend. So if you got somebody you want to tell, go ahead and text the link out. That way they can join us all the way live on Mixcloud. Okay, everybody, just want to say once again, thank you for coming out tonight and tuning in to the HGN live stream every Friday night at 10 p.m. with the Bricklayers. I am your man, Uncle Black, a.k.a. the Wise Elder, and this is my guy, best DJ in the planet, top 5, dead or alive, Ron 2, the lyrical Ginsu. Giving him, I'm going to give you some applause today, bro.
Thank you.
You got some good news today, sir.
It's a great day.
It's a great day. This is my homie, my brother from another mother. So.
Yeah.
Without further ado, let's get into this Zoom and let's introduce everybody. How you doing tonight? We want to give you a round of applause.
That's appreciated. Thank you so very much.
So where do we start here? We get into the questions, or are we gonna introduce everybody? Got anything?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin.
Hi, so my name is Laurenia Fahie. I am the CEO founder of Strategy Sessions. That is going to be the coaching arm of my mental health practice. And so I just launched that part of the business. And so that's why I guess I was invited to have this conversation tonight. In addition to that, I've known Delvin for quite some time, and we've worked on different projects together. I have a background in law enforcement, 26 years. And so that was one of the reasons that I even dove into mental health, because of coming into contact with different people at varied points of crisis and not really having a depth of understanding. And so I took it upon myself to go and acquire my master's in counseling psychology, and then go a step further and get my full licensure from the state of Florida as a licensed mental health counselor, just again to broaden my depth of understanding. And so it was something that I absolutely enjoyed doing. And so I decided that, yeah, I want to dive into this and truly just expand it. So here we are.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Real deep there. See, you love what you do. Law enforcement, 26 years, you said?
Do it right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
do it right.
No,
So-
that's right.
Up next, we have Ebony. You can go ahead and introduce
Hello,
yourself.
good afternoon. I am Ebony Hicks, CEO and founder of the Bethany House. We're a nonprofit organization, 501c3, and we focus on family and youth enrichment. Bethany House was birthed from my own story of resilience, as my brother was a result of teen violence. He was murdered in 92. And I am also the owner of Driven to Inspire, where I provide life coaching and mental health therapy. By profession, I am a social worker, and I've been doing outpatient therapy 8 years.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who's next? Who want to take it? Delvin, Frankie?
I'll go next. Oh,
Ladies first. All right.
I'll go next. Good evening, everyone. I said, I should have went first, because after hearing everybody else, I was like, oh my gosh. Well, my name is France Marie Bullard from Aceimpact. I'm a personal development and leadership coach for youth, and I do youth programming. I'm also a law enforcement officer, 17 years, and I'm here because this is a topic of concern, and I'm here to help and to provide input.
Thank you very much.
Great,
Thank
great,
you.
great. Hey, your hair looks nice, by the way. All right. And my guy, Delvin, what's up?
All right. Well, I don't have any hair, so we just gonna start with that. But my name is Delvin Rogers. I am the CEO of C.A.L.M., which stands for Control Anger Limit Madness. I'm also a full-time teacher. Basically, the reason I wanted to tackle anger management is basically, from working with students, and you're seeing their different moods and, anger and different things that are going on at home. So with that light bulb, I said, okay, well, let me, start an LLC where it tackles that very subject, and a lot of kids today, don't know how to manage, their anger, self-control, keep their cool, and they don't understand what emotional intelligence is all about, when it comes to anger. So right now I'm just trying to, tackle both, and, possibly get into schools where I could, do sessions, for students who don't have that control, but, they have the desire to want to learn, so that's pretty much my focus.
Great.
Great.
Anything you want to add to that, Rondo? So,
Now, I want to get started now.
okay, so this is a big topic. I don't know if we're going to be able to cover everything, but we got, 45 minutes and counting to hit this. So let's hit the ball running. Let's start with some of the questions. Trauma. Who wants to take it? What is it? How does it affect you? How is it affecting us in the community? Is it going along hand in hand with the gun violence?
I'll take that question if it's okay.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right. So when we're looking at trauma, I think that it's very important for us to understand that there is 3 levels of trauma. So we're looking at acute, chronic, and complex. And trauma is basically the emotional response to an event, a specific event in one's life. And with the understanding that trauma affects everyone differently, for me, being that I am currently a professor at a local university. So, and I've had that exposure to doing adults and youth as far as therapy, that we have to understand what we're really looking at and what we're working with as a result to what we are seeing now today as a result of a lot of trauma, a lot of gaps within the community, a lot of gaps in resources and gaps in other areas. We could talk about how many things are affecting our youth population and their families right now. But if we get to a certain level, and when I say we, I mean outside of us, because we are all here for the same reason. We're compassionate about what we do, but we're also trying to seek and come to a common understanding of how we can impact change. If we look at and understand the different levels of trauma, I think that we could increase the level of interventions, successful interventions, effective interventions within our community to promote these changes with gun violence, youth anger management, community development, as we look at that and from so many different aspects. So that's really what trauma is. It's just the behavior response, the cognitive understanding, the cognitive response that's resulting in a lot of the actions that we're seeing today in our community.
Sounds good. So what are some of the signs that somebody might be experiencing some type of trauma?
Well, some of the signs that you will see when it comes to, particularly we're kind of honing in on youth on tonight. We're talking about risk-taking behavior. We're talking about impulsivity. We're talking about apathy. We're talking about, sometimes you'll see that, you've been so exposed and on such a prolonged level that you get to a point where you don't even react anymore. Those centers have, you've gotten to a point where your affect is flat and different things of that nature. That is a profound sign that you have been overexposed to things like trauma. And when we look in our communities, we have that pervasive, that persistence. So, my thing is, changing that P in PTSD to stand for pervasive and persistent, so that our population that has it on an ongoing basis can really get the help that they need on the post-traumatic stress, because again, that post really kind of knocks that out and makes it so that you can't get the assistance when you're dealing with an ongoing situation. And that is oftentimes what you see in our communities. So yeah, trauma, you see so many different, you see that hypermasculinity, you see all sorts of different all sorts of different ways it manifests itself, especially when you're talking about young Black men. So it's something that you definitely, sometimes you misread it when you don't know what you're looking at. But once you kind of have that assessment and you look at the person's complete history, then you're able to kind of make those connections and see what's actually happening.
Quick one. Can you go back a little bit when you said changing the P from out of the PSTD to what? I kind of missed that.
I'm sorry, post-traumatic stress disorder, that's PTSD. And so my thing is persistent traumatic stress disorder is what I believe it ought to be, especially when you're talking about our kids in our community.
Okay, so how does this all tie into the gun violence in America? Anybody? Somebody want to jump in?
I think they kind of hit it on the head, because not knowing how to handle situations, trauma, stress, bullying, all the type of things that kids go through, especially in our communities, they don't know how to handle it. And sometimes a gun is their solution, not realizing that, not knowing how to handle this trauma, you're just adding another one after, because it's what they think a gun is. And then the reality is, after you actually shoot somebody or kill somebody, there's another trauma that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
And I also think that, it's very important that we look at our youth population as a whole. I think that in some cases, and I'm going to speak from things that I've been exposed to as I've been in the therapy field and the life coaching field, and I've also had an opportunity to deal with some of these individuals during medical transitions, and most of them have been related to gun violence. My first youth that I had as a therapy client was a male that was 17 years old, just discharged from Jackson Memorial Hospital with 8 gunshot wounds to the abdomen. Mm-hmm. We tend to just look at the youth as this bubble, and one of the things I try to get people to understand during my community outreach is that we have to look at them as a whole person. We have to look at their environment. We have to look at the social factors. We have to look at the family gaps. We have to look at their environments in which they're functioning in. We need to look at their schooling and environments in which they are transitioning in, learning from, or engaged in. So for me, that's a big piece for me, just learning and keeping an open heart, as I am, in some cases empathetic, but in other cases I have to be very resourceful and forceful, because I have to end up including the whole family as a part of their care. So I think that for me, that's one of the biggest things, is that we have to stop separating, and we can really understand more so the issues that we're seeing today, because it's not that we're just dealing with children or youth. We're dealing with angry children. We're dealing with displaced children. We're dealing with children who already had behavioral issues that went unnoticed or known or unrecognized. So we really have to look at the whole piece, as the whole person care. So that's the model that I try to function on, as far as driven to inspire with my life coaching. But for me, I found that to be very, very imperative. And I think that's a missing piece in a lot of the resources that I've had to engage with.
Good point.
Something?
And I think just to piggyback off what Ms. Hicks said, I think a lot of times, we do have to look at the bigger picture in terms of, the family structure, the environment, and things like that, and see that, for the most part, that's where that anger comes from, because, it's a lot going on in the home, that environment, which can be, very negative, and then, those kids embed that type of situation. And then with that anger, that's all they pretty much know, because they don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to have that self-control. And a lot of times with this gun violence, and let's just call it what it is, with social media, because it's taken another avenue than what it was designed for. So with social media, kids may say things, or, that bully effect, and that's where that impulse comes from, so let me act on impulse, because I don't really know or have been taught how to manage or have that self-control. So I'm going to act on impulse and do what I need to do, because he's been bullying me, for quite some time. And that's just how I'm going to react, because that's just what I know, or that's what I see in my neighborhood, or that's what I've seen, in my household, mom, dad, they fuss, fight. And I'm assuming that that's the normal thing to do. So I'm just going to mimic that and go about doing it the way I see it. So for me, with, my organization, I just try and teach kids how to manage, because of course, anger is it's a healthy emotion. We all get angry for one thing or another, but, if we know how to manage it, with that cool down period or what have you, whatever it is that you decide you want to do to calm yourself down, you got to have that self-control. You have to have that emotional intelligence, because if you don't have that emotional intelligence, you're just telling yourself, that's what I was supposed to do, opposed to, no, that's not the right thing to do. Let me find another avenue. So that's just some things that I try and tell the youth, especially our young Black boys.
Yeah. If it's okay that I clarify something real quick, because I think sometimes there's a lot of stigma placed on when we talk about the social environment and the environments of our youth, that everybody assumes that there's nobody there trying to cover them or guide them or provide a nurturing environment. So when I'm reflecting towards the home environment, I'm not necessarily reflecting on that as a negative aspect, because there are a lot of parents, a lot of guardians that's really going hard to try to keep these children on the right road. I'm with these individuals. I'm coaching these individuals. I'm supporting these individuals. So I just really wanted to shed some light on that, because I hear it a lot in the community. The parents don't teach them better. The parents. I happen to be a parent of a 20-year-old African-American son. So I just really wanted to shed some light on that, because it's boiling down to mindset as well. So I really wanted to shed some light on that and clarify that, because I know there's a lot of you out there that are really going hard to try to really just fight for the life of the youth in your family, in your home, and in your community.
in addition to that, I wanted to kind of expand on what Miss Hicks talked about, and of course Delvin talked about. For us to kind of again broaden that whole perception of what we're dealing with and not kind of narrow it and understand that we're dealing with something. We're talking about looking at the ecosystem. We're talking at looking at the household. We're talking at looking at the community. We're talking at looking at all these important pieces that are built in and innately part of your support system. Because we all know that for us, we had, we had our moments as young people coming up where, we tested the waters. It is what you do. It is part of growing up. You tested the waters. You tried to see what you could get away with. You did some things, if we are to be honest, we did some things, and had our parents found out about it, we would be, in a whole lot of trouble. But at the end of the day, that being a part of it, we had some people that were running interference for us. And that's not to say that these young people don't, but it's also a very different day. It's a different day. We are dealing with a whole different beast that we weren't dealing with. Thank God for us that didn't have to deal with a lot of the things that our young people now have to deal with. Where when we came home and we closed the door, our parent only had to deal with what was happening inside, or maybe what we did when we were at school. But whatever is happening on the outside now is in your home by virtue of these devices.
Right.
It's in your home, so there's no separation. And we have to understand that what these kids are going through is following them 24/7. They don't get a break from it. They absolutely don't get a break from it. And we have to understand that that's part of what's going on, and the pressures and the stress of what is a normal part of adolescence and growing and maturing and things of that nature is now exponentially worse because of the age and the time that we're living in. And so we have to give voice to even all of that when we're trying to provide services, when we're trying to assist, when we're trying to help these young people navigate this life. And also, some of it also has to do with that sense of, I finally am in control of something. I have some power. So when you're talking about gun violence, when you're talking about young people, brandishing these weapons and utilizing them to take each other's lives and things of that nature, sometimes it's that whole sense of power, that comes along with that we're not factoring in, that we have to give rise to. Sometimes that's the only time, I'm heard, when I have this piece of metal in my hand, or when I have this device in my hand, or I have this thing in my hand. And so we have to understand all these things, and we have to be willing to listen to them when they're talking and not assume that we know what the story is. Now we can understand that, given what we have in front of us, but it's very important for us to get them to a place where they're safe and they're able to talk and they're able to really just open up and tell us what is actually happening, so that I can help you appropriately, but we have to deal with all those things. So,
and can I add that, we don't want to forget that some of our gun violence is unintentional, and you have youth that are curious, that find a weapon, that want to bring a weapon to school, want to show their friends, and some deaths end up happening unintentionally. So we still have to educate our youth about weapons and that they actually do harm somebody, because they may play video games all day and not realize that once you pull that trigger, that person is gone, and there's no reset, no start over, no comeback from that.
Good. And that leads up to my next question, which I think is a great question. Do either of you think gun violence is particular to a race or community?
I wouldn't necessarily say, I'm sorry, were you speaking with it? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
American communities, it's high. Statistics shows that our homicide rates are very high amongst the youth in specific areas, and it predominantly based on the the things I've been engaged in. It's more so where our African American children are. But for me, I've during outreach, I've had to go in Little Havana and Little Haiti and engage and enroll families. But I do think it's very high within our African American youth. I do.
Do you think, Hicks, it's because we place such a taboo on having a gun? Because when you see white communities, they take their kids to the gun range at early ages to show them how to handle it, how to shoot. And I don't think that we do the same thing in the same numbers. So it's always like, you shouldn't have a gun. Yeah. I don't want you touching a gun.
So, for me, and that's a very, very good question. I think that there's two pieces to that puzzle. I think one of the things is, and I'm going to speak from being a parent and surviving what my parents had to go through when my brother was murdered. So when my brother was murdered, no guns, stay away from violence. I got accepted into the New World School of Arts in Overtown. No, you can't attend a school. It was more now, let me protect the kids that I have. So, I kind of was isolated from a lot of things as a protective factor. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. And now I have my son who, as I think Delvin mentioned, social media has taken over, and now the amount of things that our children are able to see on social media, the murders they're able to see and watch, and you review and hype them and get into their whole cognitive mindset and things like that. And then my son comes and tells me, well, I want to go to the gun range. And in my head, I'm conflicted with that, because I'm saying, is it because you want to be safe and protect yourself, or is it because you're becoming comfortable with what you're seeing? So I think it's two pieces to that, but more so, I do think it's more so a lot of parents are thinking that they're doing the right thing, and it's a safety factor. Mm-hmm. And then you have some parents that feel, I want to take my child to the gun range now because this is just too much. I want them to be able to protect themselves. So for me, and having a 20-year-old and just recently having that conversation, which is why I said it was a really good question. We're in two places with that, but I do feel you when you say, that other cultures do support their children in becoming well-trained in knowing how to use a firearm.
And I can piggyback on that, as, being in law enforcement for as long as I have, there is guns in my house. And so one of the first things that I did was introduce my kids. I have two sons, one 26 and one 18 now. Introduce them to what it is and, what it can do, and give them the information. Because my thing is always arming them with information so that, you take away that sense of curiosity. When you kill the curiosity, nobody, oftentimes that takes away that little thing that might make you do something that is unsafe. So I did what I could to kind of take away the curiosity. Here it is, touch it, hold it, things of that nature. And thankfully it kind of stopped there, because just have.
What age were they?
If memory serves me right, my oldest one is special needs. And so my youngest one, I think he might have been around 9 or 10, and so he's always been around firearms, but it's, not in the sense of, it's like, mommy, could you please put that away type deal. It's just not interesting to him.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, jumping on to another subject, not too far off, because it does come hand in hand. Do either of you think there is such a thing as Black mental health?
I don't know if I would say it's Black mental health, but to kind of give light to the fact that there are some nuances that are different in one community versus another. And so we have to kind of be mindful of that and be able to meet people where they are and understand the totality of the people that we're serving. I think Ms. Hicks talked about it before, understanding that entire ecosystem, understanding that there's some nuances that you might have to deal with over here that you may not have to deal with over here. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I'm proving you what you just said. Yeah, there might be such a thing if you want to label it, but there's, to me, it's the nuance that is geared toward that particular group and may not necessarily be, because there's uniqueness in both populations.
Yeah, very true, very true. And if I might add, just to piggyback, and again, if that's if we had an opportunity to label it, then maybe that's appropriate. But one of the things that I've identified is that our mindset when it comes to mental health, especially with our younger adults, female and male, and the way that we present things, and not that it's done incorrectly, but I think that our mindset with mental health is that I'm not crazy, I don't believe in shrinks. The responses that I've gotten from individuals has been, I always use it as a teaching moment, and I have seen an increase in males within the past month that have enrolled and or I've linked to mental health therapy, but all of them have the same thing, a lot of resistance because of the mindset of what they feel mental health therapy is. And one of the things that I try to do, no matter where I am, is I try to, educate, of course, but I try to show them that this is a normal part of the life, that we all are dealing with something mentally. But I think that the stronghold is when people and I'm going to refer to the youth, they don't feel that where they are mentally is a problem. We have to be able to call things out, and I do that even within my home. I have to call it out, and I have to educate and normalize that it's okay to not be okay, but this is what we can do. And like I said, I've seen an increase in males in the past month, and I can't tell you how proud I am of our men that are finally, and young men, I mean, from ages like 17 on to 22, that are saying, you know what, I can't promise you anything, but I realize that now I have an issue and I want to do my best, and can you help me? Because it's hard for people to reach out for help, mental health services. So I do think that it's a mindset that we really have to try to work hard to change the mindset within our communities as it relates to mental health and break that stigma.
Now, do you think it's... Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you think that the environment plays any role in these new cases of people coming in with mental health issues?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question?
Do you think the environment that these kids live in is causing them to come out for help or reach out for help?
To a certain degree, but what I do think is happening is that now parents and or caretakers are now seeing the need. They're becoming more comfortable with it and understanding it and talking about it within our homes, because I've seen a lot of resistance from the parents where a doctor or physician or the school may refer them with something that's, oh, it's nothing wrong with him, it's nothing wrong with her. But when they sit back and it starts to attack in the home, it's like, now there's a problem. Now we need to address this. And then when we see the news and we see the numbers increasing from our youth violence, the amount of youth that's being admitted in crisis on a weekly basis, I think now that people are more so becoming open to push their children and encourage their children to reach out for help. Because at this point, a lot of us feel helpless and a lot of us feel hopeless. So right now, although we're in the middle of a war, I like to consider it a war because it's what it is. But we're also in a race. A lot of people are racing to try to save their children now, and their hands are tied. So yes, I think it has a lot to do with the environment now.
And I've definitely seen a shift. With the different things that you're seeing in mainstream where, it's okay not to be hashtag, it's okay not to be okay, different things of that nature now being said openly. And these things being said in such a way that, it's opening up these conversations where you're able to talk more about mental health, and you're able to kind of liken it to, I always say, if there was some other part of your body that was quote unquote broken, you would address it. No one would have to convince you to address it. Why is it that when we have issues mentally, and we're talking about the main part of our functioning, we're talking about basically, if we were to liken it to an engine, we're talking about the engine. We're talking about this is where all the decision making, everything happens, and yet and still that's the one place that we don't want to get help. It's like the rest of you can't be okay if that's not okay. And so when we start educating on why this is important, it's as important as going, to get your heart or one of your limbs or, get your blood pressure checked. It's equally as important, if not more, to go and get that handled, because that will, it dictates whether or not you're successful, whether or not you're okay, whether or not you're able to function, whether or not you're able to thrive. All of that is dictated by your mental health. And so we have to be bold enough to start having these open conversations and look that stigma in the face and call it what it is. Nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. And we have to be bold enough to do that.
And I think that we have to be more accepting and have these conversations in our home, because you said Black mental health, and I'm not a mental health therapist, but I do know that there are certain topics that as a Black community or families that we weren't talking about before. So everything was like, don't do that. Sex, you know, we want to talk to our kids about drugs. We want to talk to them about guns. We want to talk to them about mental health. All of these things, as long as we're having the conversations, we'll be able to see them for what they are when, you know, those things do arise. So I do think we need to start normalizing it, start being more accepting, not letting them know that mental health doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that you might need somebody to talk to. You just might need a break, a day off, you know, get off the computer, stop, you know, glorifying social media. Sometimes it's just something so simple, and sometimes it could be a mental health break. So,
yeah, and I'm really hyped to see what you know comes out of C.A.L.M. Delvin, I'm really excited to see how this is going to turn out, because I personally feel that once youth get an understanding of what anger really is and understand conflict resolution and emotional intelligence, I think that is going to be a huge impact, especially once you start networking and engaging within the schools, because we have to meet them where they are. And unfortunately, you know, there's not many of us that's going to be in the clubs and or at their hangouts and or, you know, where these young men and or women are engaging with now, because it's not like back in the days. Everybody's not hanging at the skating rink and having clean fun. Now they have cliques, they have other hangouts, you know. So I'm really, really excited about what you're about to birth, because this is going to be a part of nurturing that whole communication and that self-esteem and that whole behavioral concept that may not be at hand, you know, within the environments that they partake in. So I'm really excited about that.
And this may not be it may not be PC, but you know, I think I'm bad to the bone in terms of what I'm bringing to the table, and I think everyone else here is too. But what I will say is, it's a beautiful thing to see this coming from a Black man. I'm sorry, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to call the thing.
Let's give him a round of applause.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you 100. I'm on the sidelines. I'm cheering you on. Let's do it. Whatever I can do, I'm supporting that, because that's a beautiful thing. So
yes, it is.
So let me ask you, Hicks, Rogers, and Fahie, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So I am in the schools right now, and right now I am working at different campsites with kids. What happens to those kids that you see have a need, whether it's mental health, anger management, but their parents aren't receptive to treatment or help? How do they get those services?
I'm going to be very, very transparent with you. I'm willing to go places that people in my field may not be willing to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to go places that people in our communities are not willing to go, and that's to the forefront. So I approach the parents, and I have that tough conversation, and I ask the right tough questions, and believe it or not, they appreciate it in the end. That's how I've been able to get a lot of youth linked in and or referred and or enrolled into my service. And it's not about numbers. For me, it's about getting them the help and making sure I have the right approach, education. And of course, you'll be very surprised on the number of parents that give me the response and say, you know what, nobody's never asked me that. Nobody's never cared that much to make a visit to my home, or nobody's cared that much to call me after they've sent me to the voicemail, after they've ignored the calls. You know, we're in a space and time where we just can't give up so easily. So I just stay very current and very present, and let them know that there are some individuals out here, especially within the Black community, that want to sincerely help and help them with their children. And I've been very successful with that. So I'm very open and transparent with the parents. And that's how I've been able to network and get these children what they need.
And I think for me, a lot of times, of course, you know, it's not easy talking to parents about anything, you know, that relates to their kid, because they see things one way. So with me wanting to dive in with our young Black males and anger, you know, I first want to talk to the parent so I can kind of get a root of where this is coming from. And automatically you see, okay, well, this child has anger issues because the mom or dad flat out doesn't want to participate in something you're trying to initiate. So you see that anger right there. So all of this is bottled down on the youth, and then he just takes that wherever he goes, But what I try and do is, the peel, peel away the onion layers just to see, okay, well, what are some things you like to do? What do you do when you go home? Just trying to get a feel of why, that child has that anger, and then, as time progresses, I try and get him to understand, it's okay to be angry. However, you can't always act on impulse if something happens or doesn't go your way. You have to learn how to have that self-control. You have to be able to manage it, because if you act on impulse each time that you're angry about something, there are such thing, as consequences, and you don't want to have yourself in a situation to where your mom, your dad can't get you out of, so, whatever it is that you want to practice on, whether you want to put your earbuds in and listen to your favorite song or whatever, or just take a walk or things like that, just have that cool down period, because with those consequences, you can't really get that back, and if you're in a jam, you may not have that support system, to get you out of that jam. So, I try and talk to parents, again, like I said, it's not always easy, because they see things one way. Oh, my child doesn't have anger issues, but what I try and do is provide, certain facts of what I'm trying to do. And I'm not the enemy. That's number one. I'm just trying to assist because he's a young black male. I'm a black teacher, and I see great things in your child, and this is what, I think every black male, young black male needs, a mentor of sorts that looks like him, that's able to relate, so that's what I try and give parents. It's not always receptive, but, you're not going to get through to one, but you may have that other one who's willing to sit down and listen. So, that's why I keep pushing and try and crack through one or two parents that want to listen and want to participate and see things in their child that, may need attending to. And here I am to try and, give them that positive feedback and just go from there.
In addition to, when you're talking about the whole concept of peeling back the layers, sometimes when we see this anger and when we see this overt violence, it's a cry for help sometimes. It's a cry for help. It's a cry because I'm so full, and where do I guide all of this? Where do I divert all of this that's going on inside of me, because I don't have the proper tools to deal with what's happening, the things that I don't have control over sometimes, and so on and so forth. So, you have to be able to get them to the place where they can maybe even talk to somebody or so on that knows how to peel back those layers appropriately, because oftentimes what you see isn't what you're seeing. There's a whole story behind that.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times I think, and I'm not going to put names out there or particular programs and stuff like that, but I think a lot of times programs want to try and save, our youth with throwing a lot of things on their plate, and they already have enough on their plate. Sometimes you got to sit back and you have to just listen as to what they're dealing with, and don't give any feedback. Let them cry it out, because a lot of times they just want someone to listen as to what they're dealing with. I can't come in and say, well, man, listen, you shouldn't have done it that way. You should have did it this way. Already you're doing it wrong. You're pointing a lot of fingers and things like that. Just sit back, talk to me. How was your day? How was school today? Different things. And you just sit back and listen, and they'll appreciate the fact that you just allowed them to talk, because they're already dealing with enough.
Yeah. And to piggyback on what Delvin mentioned, which was very strong, I think that it's also important for us to understand that in most cases, with the lack of not having that active listener in their life, or that person or environment that's not nurturing and trying to understand them and their transitions, right? It's just like it was mentioned earlier, we all went through these transitions, these growing pains. These individuals are also trying to find a place to belong. And when I say that, I'm referring to the increase of what is now considered gangs within our community. They are looking for a place to belong. They are fighting with self-esteem issues. They are fighting with identification. You know, how do my peers see me? How can I be, you know, this or that within in my little circle? So now you have the kid that's eager to take that ride to do a shoot, be involved in a shooting. You have that young man or young woman that's easily entertained by this whole lifestyle of gun violence. And I really think that that's something that has a very strong hold on within our community, that our children are fighting to have a place to belong. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, they're fighting to have a place to belong. And I mean, if you were them, you would want to fit in with the crowd that seems the hottest and the hardest, you know, because they got this whole thing that, you know, they got their own little language. They got their own understanding of each other. You know, if you don't do this, then you green. If you don't do this, then you a snitch. If you don't do this, then you know, you this and that. And I had to get to an understanding of that. Like my son said the other day something about that's fue, and I'm saying, well, what is fue? What does that mean? So I'm okay with having that open communication in my home, because I want to understand him when I hear him on the phone and he's saying something. I don't believe in codes, but they're talking codes because they're trying to fight to stand, to have that self-identification, that place to belong. And unfortunately, this place to belong is really just taking more of their lives and giving them more empowerment. So that's really
what is fue? I don't know.
Fue means that you look good, or you know, it's fly. But in my you know, what does that mean?
Thank you. Now I know.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. And I'm saying, wait, I'm like, you know, I'm trying not to react, but I'm not that parent anymore either. I'm like I said, I kind of let him be who he needs to be in home, so I can correct it and or address it here, as opposed to him going out in the community, because he's not under my radar anymore. He's 20 years old. I can't control much, you know. But yeah, I think that's one of the things: self-identification and finding that place to belong, and them having this whole I am somebody in the community is leading to a lot of what's going on that we're seeing the result of. And again, like I said, unfortunately, a lot of the places to belong is resulting in a lot of homicide cases, murders, and a lot of funerals, and a lot of families who have to deal with the trauma of losing their child, burying their children.
Right. And I just think, you know, like I said earlier, you know, social media, you know, you got Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that, you know, which was designed, you know, as a brainchild for one thing, but now we've seen to where social media has taken a hard right, you know, in terms of kids and, you know, bullying back and forth, and, you know, talking about this gang, and I'm gonna, you know, as the kid said, I'm gonna pull up on you, you know, and stuff like that. And I think that's the primary reason for a lot of, you know, these recent mass shootings and stuff like that, you know, just internet beef, as they call it, you know, just, you know, and that's something that, you know, can't be controlled, you know, because it's there, it's available, it's on your phone. You can say this, you can say that, you know, and these kids have cars now, and they, you know, drive by and do this and do that, you know. So I just, it's unfortunate to where social media has gone. You know, you know, we use it for our platform, you know, to push mental health and anger and different positive situations. But you have that negative with a lot of youth that just use it for just total negativity.
Mm-hmm. And it was something Miss Fahie said earlier that really, you know, shed a light on one of the things we really want to encourage, you know, during this time. And I'm sure that all of us continue to do this ongoing, is when she talked about how she introduced her children to, you know, the understanding of how to use a gun and things like that, and how she provides that education in her home. And I know that that's not coming from just because of a place of her profession. That's coming just from a place of her being a mom. So, you know, it's really, really important for us to encourage, you know, the parents and or guardians and or grandparents and any of you that may be playing as that mother or father figure that, don't be afraid to have those conversations and or introduce, certain aspects of life and or what we're facing right now to your children. And I really appreciated that comment coming from her. We have to start some things within the foundation of the home. We can't hide it. It's like Delvin said, it's on social media. We can't save them from everything. I had to learn that the hard way. As my son got older and he wanted to go out and live, it was a fear for me. But we have to be able to start that education and introduction within our home. So I really appreciated that comment that she made with her boys.
And to kind of piggyback on what you just said, the home, sometimes that's the only place you have, that's your sphere of influence. Sometimes you're not going to be out in the community. Sometimes you're not going to be in the school setting. Sometimes you're not going to be a therapist. Sometimes you're not going to have that reach. And all you have is your four corners. Well, go ahead and do what you got to do there. Yeah. And so we want to, we want to impact this change. And sometimes that's what you were called to do. Those four walls is all you were called to do, but you have to work that. And so put some energy into what's going on there. And I remember back in the day, our parents went hard. Let you not be home when you were supposed to be home. They were coming to find you. They were coming to find you. Let you not be home. So my thing is, we've gotten to a point where we're so lax and we're so timid by, okay, fine. Oh, if I do this and, they'll call the police, or if I do that, well, you're just going to have to call the police. Do what you got to do, but I'm coming to find you because you're my responsibility.
Correct.
And so we have to also get back in the game as parents, because you're up against this behemoth of, the world and social media and everything, being filtered into your home. You now have to go ahead and take dominion over that thing and go, this is no. You're going to have some influence, but right here, right now, I'm going to work this because I have, this is my responsibility. And so we don't have the luxury now of just, throwing up our hands anymore. We've got to get back. We've got to be, re-energize and get back in the game. We've got to get back in the game.
And let us not also forget those youth who are fighting within their own stories. And I say this, and like I said, I'll never forget that. I've been in this field for a very long time. And that young man and I'll never forget him. During one session, I had to just ask some of the tough questions, and it was related to anger, kind of sort of what, I'm sure Delvin is indulging in when he talks to these youth. And he said, can I show you something? And I said, sure, and we went to walk. He took me to this field, wasn't too far from his house in Overtown. And in my head, I'm saying, am I prepared for what he's about to show me? How am I going to react? And, what is it? Because I've never had that happen. And he took me to a field where he saw his father die of an OD. And I processed it with him right there at that open field, despite of worrying about the level of crime that was at that time really hot in that neighborhood, that specific neighborhood. But what I realized is that there's a lot of children fighting within their stories of their parents, and they don't know how to communicate that. So it goes back to what all of us have kind of sort of stated in our own way. Do they really know how to express and or communicate their feelings? And if not, who's going to uphold that when we're not around as professionals? Is there more that we can do to ensure that those of them that's suffering from the loss of a parent, from the murder of a parent, from the overdose of a parent, from the absence of a parent, do they really know how to carry that over into their teenage development years as they transition to young adults? And it's just something that will stay with me forever. And I just think it's very important for us to also understand that there's a story behind every youth that we see, no matter how much they're labeled in the community, how much they're stigmatized in the community, because that's another thing that happens. But I think that's just very important for us to understand as professionals, mothers, parents, guardians, law enforcement, wherever we are in the world. We need to really, really dig inside of that as we are really trying to impact a change and be change agents within our community.
And one of the things that I always quote unquote check it when it happens. This whole idea of when we're dealing with our little ones, especially when they're little, he bad, she bad.
Labeling.
No, stop that. You know, first of all, this is a kid. This is a kid. So when we start doing that overt, just labeling, just telling them, again, you're giving them that messaging, and especially if it's coming from, a person of influence in their life, a parent, a teacher, a guardian, and you're telling this young person that they're bad. Again, that messaging is internalized. So we've got to be mindful of what you're speaking into these young people. Be mindful of that, because it doesn't go away. You might think, no, it's a joke or what. It's not funny. It is not funny. You are forming a belief system in their spirit when you do certain things. So you've got to be mindful of how we speak to and over them. So, that's just something that that's one of my pet peeves. Be mindful of what you say. Because again, they're developing, they're growing, they're learning. Half of the people that we come in contact with don't know that, your brain doesn't develop fully until you're 25 years old. So a lot of these life-changing things for these young people are happening in their teenage years, where at 25, they might have completely changed and transformed and matured, and they no longer see things the same, because again, that process is taking place. Because you can remember when you were, when you were 18 as opposed to when you were 25, as opposed to where you are right now. It's a whole different, this person has grown, changed, matured, transitioned. All these wonderful things have happened. But there was a time that nobody could reason with you or I. They couldn't reason with us because we knew everything. But that too is a part of the process. So we have to give room for that as well, and stop saying certain things are bad or certain things it's a part of the process. But when we see them going into left field, now we have to know how to kind of pull them back. And then we have to, again, give light to all of what's happening. So we're all right back to trauma. When you talk about that young man taking you to that place and, and sharing something, that being that vulnerable in that moment, and sharing that experience that is still with him, that's again, we're right back at trauma. We are right back at that persistent, pervasive trauma that a lot of us and a lot of our young people are dealing with on a daily, consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Wow. I got questions. I don't even know where to start.
Wow. We
Here's
just went off
one.
on a tangent, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, we know
We had
these.
our own podcast.
My question is, if we know we're dealing with kids that really can't or internalize and know what they're going through, as adults, shouldn't we be providing them more outlets to burn that energy, to burn off that anger, keeping them busy? I mean, how do we get kids from being idle? How do we keep them off the street with this idle time to get into all this trouble?
I mean, I would say, and every kid is not into sports and things like that. But you have to really sit down and engage with that youth to find out what are their likes and dislikes. It's like you're trying to form a brotherhood or a bond with that particular kid just to find out what their likes are. If it's video games, okay, well, what's your favorite video game? Try and build a rapport. And let's say if you finally talk with the parents and you have that rapport. Okay, well, he likes video games. If he goes to the Boys and Girls Club, okay, well, let me see if I can talk to the director there to set up something for him, in terms of video games. Let's see if we can have a room to where him and his friends can go and play video games. That way, to me, that's keeping him from following behind other guys, to do something that they shouldn't be doing. Here he is at a respectable center, and he's doing something that he likes. So for me, I just try and always find, what are your likes, dislikes, so I can try and get to know who you are. But ultimately, my goal is to just keep you from, running with that wrong crowd, because it could be that one mistake that you may not have had or participated in, but you're with that group, and now you have to suffer the consequences just like they do, and you may not even be that type of kid that gets into mischief and stuff like that, but now you wrapped up into that situation. So what are your likes? If you do like football, okay, well, hey man, I have a football in my trunk. Let's throw some passes or things like that. Just keep them engaged, show them that you're just like them. Because I was once 10, 11, 12 or whatever, and I like football. So hey man, let me throw some passes. And sometimes it's the smallest thing, because they may look at you as, okay, well, he's 30, 40 years old or whatever. He's not going to throw the football. Yeah, man, I'll loosen up my tie and throw on some other shoes that I got in the trunk. Let's throw the ball. They just want to feel like you're one of them, like you want to feel what they're feeling. So I find a joy in doing things like that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, can I say that? Thank you. Can I say that we also need to be able to get the information to the parents, because I meet a lot of parents that have no clue what programs are out there for their children. I mean, summer camps this summer, so far, everything I've seen has been free. And I've still met parents that had no clue where to put their kids or couldn't find anything for their children. So I guess, finding more ways to reach the parents, to let them know what is available, what is out there, where they can find it. Because in order for these kids to be in these programs, somebody has to enroll them. We want to give props to the teachers that, make sure they contact the parents to let them know what's available. But we still need more ways to reach those parents, because a lot of them are not, on listservs for their city. So they don't know what's going on there. They don't know what's going on at the community centers. They don't know where to find Ebony Hicks or Ms. Fahie or Delvin's program. So we need to be able to put those links out there for them, the same way they can find, their favorite purse and accessories and everything else that keeps popping up on their feed. They should be able to find these programs for their kids.
Yeah. I was just going to mention, as you asked that question, it makes me think about one of the things that I'm really trying to work on this summer. And so we have some really, really great youth services and or resources within our community. But it's something that Delvin stated that I've experienced myself when my son was smaller. If your child is not really interested in sports, you're kind of limited on, what's available within our surrounding communities. And then you have to look at, do you have that parent that's going to drive to Broward to put their child in an extracurricular activity? Do you have that parent that could afford it, and or do you have that parent that's going to drive to Port Gables to, get their child that's not interested in football or cheerleading or basketball? Because, and I'm just speaking of the prevalent resources that's available now. So one of the things we're really trying to work on is looking at resources. I know that funding is sometimes an issue, but we really do need to identify if they exist and or create interactive programs where the child that can express themselves therapeutically through music, they can go in and do that. The child that can demonstrate and express themselves through art therapy, that they don't have to wait just for the summer to do that. That's a year-round thing, because those are things that we can actually get them into, and in that time you can build a rapport with them. You can do an assessment. You can get into their mind and their feelings as they're doing those activities. The child that loves to write, the child that needs to learn how to write. We need more of those things, and not just during a certain time. And again, I know that funding plays a big part, especially when we start looking into nonprofits and things like that. But that's one of the things that I think has an impact within our youth, is the available resources within our community that's going to aid in their growth and their nurturing, and them being expressive in different ways if they're not interested in sport.
So may I ask you a question, Hicks, and
Yeah.
Rogers and Fahie, because I've seen a lot of great programs that are free. And do you think that a lot of, I guess, kids or parents place less value on these programs because they're free?
I don't think so. I think it's really back to what you said, that sometimes the information is just not as available. In a lot of cases. I don't, for me, I don't think so. I just think it's a lack of the information being available and in a timely manner. If I've done case management prior, and with that, we've had to link families, or if they had children, we were responsible for making sure that the whole family, was linked in resources, and outreach has decreased. So the information is not readily available, as it was, as the older folk would say back in the day. So I think it's really just what you said from my perspective.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that, and I'm gonna say also, I think what I've heard over and over again in this conversation since the question has been asked is us saying we got to be proactive. You can't just wait for something to happen. You've got to go now and understand that we are fighting for our children. We're fighting for our communities. We've got to, it's not. You can't sit down and wait for somebody else to do this. This is incumbent upon us to do it. And so I'm not for sitting there waiting for, again, someone to come in with the cape and save us. When we have the power within ourselves to do these things. Again, when you're talking about, okay, the kids are home this summer, if you're still working from home, or if you're not working, or whatever the situation is, there's little things that you can do that, like you said, is completely free. Completely free. And so, that's, again, it's not, and if it's something to where, I know there are times when you're dealing with different people where they don't have the necessary transportation or things of that nature. Again, when I can speak for myself. When I was coming up, we didn't necessarily have all the luxuries, but you had your little circle of friends, and when you're at work, this person looks out for the kids, and so on and so forth, and everybody looked out for everybody. We kind of have to go back to everybody looking out for everybody. So if I can't afford a program, but all the group of kids over here, all of us are going to be home because we're in the same boat, then we take turns looking out for ours. We have to go back to that whole village mentality. It might sound
Yeah.
cliche, but it works. And so we have to get back to what worked. And let's,
Yeah.
we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to get back to the wheel. And
Yes.
because we've
Yes.
drifted way too far because of everything that's new, that's been introduced to the culture, we've gotten away from the foundational things
Yeah.
which have proven to have worked in our community. So why not go back to what works? Despite what's going on in the culture and the community, we have to employ those things that work, and we have to be there and have each other's backs.
Yeah, yeah. I have to really, really say this, Miss Wayne. You couldn't have said it more better. But we are in a cycle in our village, and I just I facilitate groups sometime, and I just had this conversation the other day. And if with the understanding that I have of certain encounters related to the youth gun violence,
Mhm.
these individuals sometimes don't live more than 10 blocks apart. The
Absolutely.
village is broken.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cycle in our village.
About.
And at this point, I think that and when I say we, I mean all of us who are not even being called to duty, but we're taking on the
Mhm.
task to try to make a change, because again, we're fighting for our children, your children. We're fighting, we're trying to stand in the gap for everybody, but the village is very weak right now. And
Mhm.
how we're going to get that strength that we had back in the day, as Miss Wade talked about, I don't know, but I'm willing. I'm willing to have the conversations that I need to have. I'm willing to do the outreach that I need to have, and I'm willing to network and collaborate with those right individuals, because we need the right individuals in place. Because again, they're fighting against each other, and I don't even think that they realize it. The village is just not there anymore. The village is not strong for whatever reasons. We don't have all the answers, but I'm so sure, and I feel so empowered just by being a part of this tonight, that we can get there. There's still hope. I know I speak to a lot of people every day, and they ask me, why do you go so hard in your program? Oh, the community doesn't care. Oh, the parents are this and this. And I can't be concerned about the naysayers or those who are not willing to stand in the gap with me, but I'm willing to stand in the gap with those who have the same compassion, that's going to take the same attempts and the same risk that I'm willing to take to rebuild that village.
And I'm gonna put this disclaimer out there right now. For those that have thin skin, go on and block your ears, because you may not be able to handle this. But we need y'all men to come and stand up with us.
Mm-hmm.
Where y'all at? We need the men to come and stand up with us and come fight for us and come fight for our communities and our children. And I'm not saying that there aren't some amazing men out there holding it down. I'm not saying that, but we need some more. And so go get the reinforcements, and let's get this thing done. It can be done. It's going to be incumbent upon us. Nobody is coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save us. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Nobody is coming to save us. It's going to be incumbent upon us to do the hard work. And we need to come stand shoulder to shoulder, women and men. And that whole idea of, oh, we don't need y'all. Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need to
You
build
can unblock your ears now. For those that wanted to, I'm going to put it out there. We need you. We need you.
So how do you guys reach?
I got to drink to that.
Reach the adults, because I was thinking that, like, throughout this conversation, it's like, are the kids really just picking up some of this stuff from the adults? There's a lot of angry adults walking around, and we get these labels put on us about being angry black people. But every time you see us on TV, we are being angry and black and loud and just So if you can't reach the adults, how are you gonna reach the children that's imitating them and that's learning these behaviors and thinking it's okay to be loud in the store and confrontational over everything? They're learning this from somewhere.
I mean, it not to cut you off. I just, and you see that everything that you're describing, you see that in different arenas. Let's say the grocery store, where the mom is on the phone talking loud and the child is right there, and not necessarily the child is talking loud as well, but they're right there looking up at the mom or dad talking loud, and then they're soaking all of this up, and then let's say they go to school and they're mimicking exactly what they're seeing, not that they're a terrible child, but it's just, it's so embedded into what they see on a daily basis, and you have to really like grab that young boy, young girl, and try and sway them to do different things, because they're just going to pick up and do exactly what they looked up at and saw their mom doing, because that's just all that they see. It's so much of a negative environment to where they begin to think it's okay. So now they're going in a direction to where, oh, well, let me just push this young lady in the back or start a fight with her, because I see this on the daily. It's okay, until we step in. Let me get to know you. What are some things you like? What I mean? We want to sway kids in opposite directions, away from things that they just think that are normal, and I can get away with that, and that's just the right thing to do, and I mean, for me, with young men, that's all I've ever done, as far as working with, in different schools and mentorship and stuff like that. I'm so passionate about working with young men and trying to steer them in a direction which I know they can go in and thrive in very well. Don't get complacent with things that you see and it's okay to do that. No, it's not okay to do that. But we're going to talk about why it's not okay to do that. I'm not going to, point my finger and say, man, listen, you know better, this, that, and other, but we're going to discuss why it's not okay to do what you're doing or what you're seeing and stuff like that, despite whatever your friends are telling you or whatever the neighborhood adult is telling you and stuff like that. You're much better than that, and you could go off to college, you could work this job, you could do this, you could do that. And I think men, including myself, need to tell these young men that, because they need to hear that in order for them to soak that up and feel like, oh man, well, he told me this, man, well, perhaps I can do that. Because if nobody is telling them that, I'm just going to go ahead and continue doing what I'm doing.
Which is why we were,
sorry, Delvin, go ahead.
earlier, yeah, we were talking earlier about the importance of addressing the ecosystem. That's why it's important for us to address the ecosystem, because when you're having a conversation with a young person, you're still up against the ecosystem. You're still up against those things that most likely have a louder voice than you do, in terms of the guardians and the parents and the community and things of that nature. So this is why it's important for you to, as professionals, when we're dealing with young people, you have to have those family type sessions. You have to address the larger, you want to address those little things that are presenting themselves, but then you have to broaden it, and you absolutely have to deal with the entire family structure in order to really bring about an impact, a true change within that family.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted to mention, I've been in both cases, as you asked about the basically the environment in which they're functioning in. I've been in the cases where I've whether this client was court ordered and or self-referred and or referred by the school. I have been in cases where I haven't been able to really, I've been able to communicate with the guardians and the caretakers and the parents, but it may not have been a win. But then I get to work with that child, and they see that child start to transition and or start to become comfortable within themselves and in their behaviors, and they start to it's like a cause and effect. Then you all of a sudden you have the parent that'll call and share a little bit more and share a little bit more, and eventually you kind of get to see where the gap is, despite of their resistance before. So from me myself, as I stated earlier, I don't have a problem with being persistent, and I mean, and then I'm not the pushy therapist. I'm not trying to push anybody to do anything, because if you understand the stages of change, you got to be it somewhere within those 5 stages in order to get some real results and real sincere change within one's life that's promoted by us as the individual. So we don't do the work. We give you the tools, and we give you the guidance, and we give you the professional compassion and nurturing that whole therapeutic change and or reaching you where you are, because we have to start where the client is. But like you stated, if the parents are not ready, sometimes it takes the child to show the parent, you know what, this is not what I thought it was, and or I'm ready to talk about my story. Maybe I should call Miss Ebony and see, XYZ. I've been in positions where the child was my client, and now, they were resistant. And at that time I was outpatient. I was in the homes. You would get the half highs, but you would get the half open up of the doors. You get doors slammed in your face. That was my job, and it's my compassion, and it's what I know that God uses me to be a vessel in these children's lives and in these families' lives. So I had to keep going. And then you get that one day, and that parent break the silence, and they tell you their story. So now they're in services, and or they want to do things and or engage in things that's going to help them become better. So I've been on both sides. I've been on the other side where the parent was fighting, please help me. This I'm tired of the school kid. This child is being withdrawn and this and that and shot at, and I'm not going back to the hospital. I'm tired. And you meet the child, and they don't even want to tell you their name. But after you keep working with that parent, and then that child sees that you're coming, because that's one of the things. A lot of our children are so burdened with being left. Okay, and I don't necessarily mean like someone walked away and abandoned them, but they've been emotionally abandoned, so they're emotionally suffocating now, and they don't know what to do with it, because they're used to people just falling off by the wayside as soon as they can't get them to a certain place. And now I won them over. So it's all about depending on the situation you're working with and who you're working with and how you're gonna work it. And approach is everything. Approach is everything. I know they teach us all the techniques in school, but after that we become individuals within our fields. So it's really about how you go in and you really work and or nurture that family. Because I've been on both sides of the tables, and I've been on the other side of the table where the parent or the child wasn't interested. But I'm saying to myself, okay, you court order, now what you gonna do?
And there's something about bringing a genuine heart to the table. You'll be
Yes,
amazed
ma'am.
how, you'll be amazed how just that, with and a little bit, and a little sprinkle on a little persistence, and you come in and you're just genuine, how
Mm,
that will just kind of pervade the entire situation, and that will speak for you. And
yes,
so,
ma'am.
you got to bring all of you to the table. And so it's not going to be easy. It's an uphill battle oftentimes when you're dealing with, young people and trying to convince, the larger community around them that, you have to be a part of this process. But it can be done. I spend my time looking at what can be done. I could spend all day talking about what can't be done, but I'm going to go ahead and put my energy into what can be done.
Can be done. Yes,
And
ma'am.
can I add, because I see that both of you have mentioned it, the consistency, being a consistent face, a consistent person, a consistent program, something they can, come to and know that that's there. I mean, I have supervised many different levels of offenders, and I used to supervise youthful offenders. And for some of them, I was their consistent face. And they're on supervision for whatever reason, pretrial, boot camp, a lot of them violent felony offenses. But I, as their officer, was a consistent person, and they really needed somebody consistent, regardless of who it was, just kind of directing them in, where to go and the right path, and just somebody to listen to and guide them and to give them those resources and where to find programs and things of that nature. So just being consistent helps a lot.
And they take a liking to that familiar face, and you will find that now they're starting to open up more, and you finding you finding out a lot more about them. And I say that to say this, a lot of times, when you come in and you're genuine, they take a liking to that. You know what I mean? Because they see that you're real and you're genuine, and that takes me back to several years ago when I was a substitute at Turner Tech High School. Now, fast forward till now, I made a comment on someone's page on Facebook, and he was a teacher at Turner Tech as well. But the kids that attended that school saw a comment that I made, and they were, I mean, it was like 3 or 4 kids who remembered who I was. Now, I don't remember them, but it's just the fact of, when I went and I did my job, and I would always, give a pep talk or say something positive to kids, they remember things like that. And this is what we're in it for. You know what I mean? To at least get that 1 or 2 kids to follow your lead, and get them to know that you're truly genuine, and you're trying to get them, steer them in the right direction. And I just, to be honest, you know what I mean? I teared up a little bit, because we're talking about, this was like 2005, and these kids now, they're grown, they're in their 30s, but they remembered who I was. And I was like, wow, that just took me aback, because I had to have said something to them, for them to remember me, for one, and just to say all these great things. And I was just a substitute, so that just drove me even more to be like, you need to just keep doing what you're doing. Everybody's not gonna, agree with what you're trying to do. Every parent is not gonna agree, but the more things happen, in terms of mass shootings and this, that, and other, or whatever, the more it drives me to want to try and grab hold of one black youth, to try and get him to not fall victim to what he sees or the music that he's listening to, and let that soak into his brain or whatever. Hey man, you could do this, you could do that. If you don't play sports, man, I mean, let's be honest, you kids are tech savvy. You know about everything on cell phones and how to do this and how to do that, man. What about technology? So, let's sit down, let's talk about it, because you can do this, so I think that's just all they need, is just a black male, you know what I mean? Somebody that can identify with them and tell them you could do X, Y, Z. That's just my thought.
Cool, great. Now, I think we can all agree that ever since this COVID-19 thing has been lifted, it's been kind of crazy out there in the communities. We're seeing a lot of violence, especially gun violence, and it seems to be a lot of guns in our communities, and only a minority of these being purchased legally. How do you think all of these guns are getting into our communities if they're not being purchased legally?
I mean,
Perfect question.
it's truly not it's truly not hard to obtain these weapons. There's a market for everything, and if there's a market for something, it's going to be made available at the drop of a dime. It is what it is. There's a market for everything, and so if there's a market for black market, if you call it guns, and it's a very lucrative market, might I add. There's going to be someone there providing it. Who that someone is, we can debate all day long, but at the end of the day, there's going to be people there providing that and making that money. Now, saturating your community with those guns and things of that nature, am I concerned with what you do about it? No, I'm concerned about the almighty dollar. And so it's incumbent upon us to now educate that, even that, we got to talk about social media being a business. We got to talk about every time you log on, somebody gets rich. We've got to talk about, when you purchase these guns illegally, you spend that money, that's a business to somebody. And, you're enriching somebody while taking somebody else's life. We got to talk about our community being pimped the way it is, and us falling victim to so much of what's happening around us. I mean, I don't know if I could say that word. Was I able to say that word?
Say whatever you want. Say it.
I apologize, but we've got to talk about these things, and we have to have these real conversations around, what we're doing to ourselves when we allow certain things to happen. Because again, you're never going to have control over, people bringing these things into our community. We can control the consumption within our community. And so what we need to do is focus on what we can control. You can't control them coming up to the gate and saying, you want to buy this, but we can control whether or not we make that buy. And so we need to get to the point where we start taking ownership of what we're going to let in and what we're going to let happen. We got to be proactive. Nobody's going to do this for us. And that's just my messaging from day one. Nobody's going to do this for us. We have to take the initiative to do this stuff and save ourselves, save our kids, and save our community.
Yeah.
Right.
Because other cultures not going to let you come in their area and do it. You can't go there.
They'll stop you at the gate.
Listen, I'm going to be over here sipping my coffee.
I think you said a lot without saying it. So I think that
they're pimping
it's the
us
same
out.
old story. We're divided. It's so easy to conquer.
The same.
Other cultures, they have their culture, they have their backbone that they fall on, and just we don't do certain things, and you're not gonna do it over here. Go do it over there. We don't care, but
it can be done. I mean, there's a lot. Is it going to be a Herculean task? Absolutely, but can it be done if we lock arms and did it together?
it's gonna take time. It's a long road.
Yes, but it's easier to build stronger children than repair broken men. So we can start with our youth.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I mean, that just goes back to what Foy said in terms of, and Ebony as well, with the village, I mean, we've lost sight of that. I mean, that's so far gone, because this is what we knew growing up. There was a village, there was the next door neighbor, you couldn't get out of line because she'll let your mom or dad know, and then, consequences when, once they get home and stuff like that. But it's so far divided, and that village has just, it's not there anymore. If we had that, then we'd be better off. We'd be a lot stronger than we are today, in terms of just different things that we see that's occurring with youth and other things that are going on in the community. It's just, there's no tight knit village anymore.
Back in the day, if you walked by an adult and didn't say good morning, by the time you made it home, your mother knew where you were, what you did, who you were with. They knew everything because the village already done called over and told on you. And so these things don't happen anymore because, you know, you're offended if someone calls and
Correct.
says something
Yes.
about your kid instead of you
Yeah.
understanding that, you know, it just never used to be that way. And we just have fallen away from those things that anchored us and those things that truly worked.
Yeah.
These things worked. It kept us alive, it kept us safe, and they worked. And we have just moved away from these things.
As we talk about the village, it makes me just think, and I'm fine before anybody, you know, this is just, it's my story, and I'm okay. But I think about when my brother was murdered, you know, I think about if the village wasn't scared to talk then, and I get it that there's a lot of people in our community that's afraid. They live off fear because it's out of control. It seems to be out of control to them, and they have to live where they have to live for whatever reasons, whether it's financial circumstances, whether it's for whatever reason. But I think that we all should be able to live in safe environments no matter what our zip codes are. But if the village wasn't afraid to talk, then I really truly believe that there would have been more success in his case. We've never been to court for his case, and he was murdered in '92. They didn't get the rims off the car. They didn't get his wallet out of the car. And that car, my mom had that car brought back home with over 32 bullet holes, but 8 in his driver's seat. And it makes me think about where we are now in the village. People are scared to talk, and it goes back to when we talk about where these children are getting these guns from. Somebody knows something, you know, somebody understands something, but we're living in a village of fear. We're living in a village of disconnect. We're living in a village of we don't believe anymore. And it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, some of us are hopeless and some of us feel helpless. So they don't talk. They don't want to talk anymore. But I want to encourage, you know, if we're gonna start somewhere, we gotta start within the community. We can sit here all day, and I've had a million conversations where people say, "Oh, it's the law enforcement fault. This person's fault." No, this is not. This is a community problem. And if we had more individuals in our community, and I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, but I'm really okay. If we had more individuals in our community that will just take a stand, you got to do something with that fear. Either you're gonna hide with it, or you're gonna die with it. And if we spoke up more, I think that we'll start to see just, you know, even if the smallest turn for me within this, because again, I stand in the gap for everybody's children in the community. I think we'll see some changes, but we got to start within the village. We can't wait on a specific group of individuals and a specific group of professionals to do the work. We got to do the work together. And that's the only way we're going to see something happen out of this.
I think it's been said. Hashtag, you're not doing that here. It's that simple.
Correct.
And you know, and just like you mentioned, you know, a few minutes ago, you know, with other races, no, you're not bringing that over here. Take that back where you live at. Take that over there. You know, and they have that tight knit community. You know, and they're willing to step up and speak out. Well, listen, this is what I saw. This is our, you know, community. We just this is how we operate over here. But how we operate in our communities, there's no village, there's no tight knit. It's everybody for themselves, and I didn't see nothing, and I'm just not gonna say nothing. And
it's not my business.
Maybe out of fear and stuff like that. But if we want to get a small crack into things that we want to see in terms of change, we have to say something. It just takes a small crack. You know, we can't sit around and granted, you know, police officers, they have their job and they're trying to do the best that they can. But I mean, let's be honest, it's only so much that they can do if they have no leads at all, you know, I mean, and then things get cold, you know, and granted, that's bad on the family that has to suffer and they have no closure. But listen, nobody wants to say anything because there's no villages. Everybody for themselves. And
can I say, I think you spoke about like fear and but we need to get into the mindset that I think you said sometimes people take it's none of my business. And if it's your community, it is your business because it may not have been you this time, but the next time it will be. And you're going to want somebody to say something on your behalf. If I see it, I'm telling.
You know,
I'm
Correct.
telling.
and I have
Yes.
this conversation all the time, in terms of, you didn't see nothing, or listen, yeah, you have to live there. That
Yep.
you're part of the community, whether you like it or not, so regardless if it didn't happen to your son or your daughter or directly in your household, but you're still part of that community.
Yep.
Hell, I mean, let's be honest. If it happened directly on the street that you stay on, I mean, I'm not saying it's your duty, but let's be honest, this is your community, and you're not doing your community, you're doing your community a disservice. I'll put it that way.
Correct.
And I just feel a certain way when people just don't say anything. I mean, let's talk about, and I'm not going to dive into that, but let's talk about the 3-year-old. I mean, and that I'm sure that touched all of us because we have kids. You know what I mean? But we're talking about an innocent 3-year-old who did not have a chance to even live a full life. We're talking 3. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know to run when he hears, gunshots, this, that, and other. We're talking about an innocent life. Nobody know nothing.
Yeah, I have a question, and it looks like Layla 2040 has a similar question as well. But what I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you think caused the breakdown of our village? And Layla 2040 wants to know, like, how can these fundamentals of the tight knit community be reintroduced in this day and age?
I,
Yeah,
let, let, me,
reintroduce
let,
our
me,
children.
let me touch this real quick, because I'm gonna be real honest with this, because I'm real opinionated about things like that. But I personally think, with the village, you know, not all parents, but some parents, and have become too lax, in terms of their child's activities. Now, I'm only talking about specific parents who just become too lax, and everything is cute, so Johnny or Sam, he can get the worst grades ever, or act up or whatever, but it's cute. Then, as Sam or Johnny gets older, now you want to put your foot down, in terms of trying to lay down the law. It's too late. You didn't chin check him when you should have, you know. And I just think, just younger parents, young grandmas, and it's just kids are running wild. It's okay, he can go over there and go to the park and stay to 10 o'clock. Are you serious? He's 12. I mean, we know we couldn't get away with that. Some of these parents knew they couldn't get away with that either. But you're lax with your son or daughter. I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
get it. And that's where I think that's where the problem starts.
Yeah. In addition to that, and like you said, we, in some instances that, we became too lax, but there, for some reason, there came a huge level of separation, and that broke down a lot of things. It broke down neighborhoods. It broke down organizations within our communities. It broke down our children being together. And this is why now, you see these little mini wars in our neighborhoods. It broke down our children understanding gratitude for life for each other in their neighborhoods because the separation, how that separation came upon. The only thing I can think of based on the public meetings and groups that I've been in and organizations where I've had to be engaged for certain reasons, whether it was, legal things and this is all about my clients and or for other situations, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but the only thing I can see was that it was a shift in the mindset where it started, whether it was with the parents or within the children, I don't know, but we became so separate. You have, like I said it earlier, you have youth who have developed these gangs that stay 5 to 10 blocks away. I have no idea how that came upon. um, we became so separated, and we really got to find a way to bridge that gap, in addition to working on how we're going to monitor and or stay abreast of not being so lax. We got to be persistent because that's where the lax come in at. One day we're gonna be parents and we're gonna punish it. We're gonna uphold our righteousness to steer you right into the next day. It's okay for you to do this and do that. We gotta stay persistent, and we gotta try to find a way to break that separation within our communities. And really, for me, that's the bottom line, and that is something that I hold so dear to my heart, because my my cousin was murdered, and I'm not gonna get into that, but when it all boiled down, it was someone that stayed like 6 blocks away that they knew. And if that wasn't heartbreaking for the family, for both families, because this was two families that knew each other, I cannot imagine how that level of separation is developed within our communities. But it is a big problem.
But it's interesting when that question is asked, it makes me just kind of ponder. Yeah, when these things happened in such an insidious way, we're sitting here having a conversation about when in the world did that happen? When in the world did we stop caring about one another and sitting out and talking to one another and eating together and our kids playing together? So because the kids don't play together no more. Everybody's inside, everybody's working, everybody's hustling, everybody's doing this, that, and the other. So the things that would bring us together, we stopped engaging in. And
Yeah.
but it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly. And so it was almost like before you realized that this monumental change had happened, it had already happened. But we weren't paying attention anymore. We stopped paying attention. We stopped doing life the way we used to do life.
Yeah.
We stopped doing life the way we grew up doing life because the culture around us changed again with the introduction of social media, with the introduction of different things. We shifted to accommodate those changes. We didn't just take the change and go, we didn't just take the change or take the new, whatever little nuance was introduced and kind of we shifted to accommodate it, and then we started doing life differently. So now we end up in a place where kids don't play outside no more. They don't play together. Families don't interact with one another. You'll live right next door to somebody and you don't interact with them. We stopped the things again that kept us bonded together. We stopped looking out and going, "Oh, I saw somebody in front of Miss Jones' house. I got to call her and see if she know this person." We stopped doing those little things that we used to do that were commonplace in our communities that kept us bonded and kept us together. We stopped calling home because somebody's offended. We stopped calling and we stopped sharing our telephone numbers with one another. We stopped doing those little things. Those little things. It wasn't huge things. Those little things that caused monumental separation in our
Yeah.
communities. And
And
so,
maybe,
mhm.
I'm sorry. So sorry to interrupt you.
No. And now to reverse that, again, it's going to take intentional acts of us understanding that those things were of value. Those things served a monumental purpose. Those things kept our children safe. And it might be uncomfortable in the beginning, but it can be done in order for us to recapture our neighborhoods, recapture our communities. I need to know who lives on your strip. I need to know these different things. So when something's different and something's standing out, we can kind of identify, okay, that person don't live over here or whatever. So we can know these things, but because you don't know who lived there, you don't even know who belonged there. So again, we've gotten away from it. And again, it happened so in such small increments that we didn't realize. And that's because we took our eye off the ball.
Yeah.
And so when we become now reintroduced to the concept of this is something that we did, now we have to undo it. We have to now say, okay, there's a problem and we have to now fix it. Part of fixing it is getting to know one another. Part of fixing it is taking ownership. Part of it is taking responsibility for what's yours, you know? Part of it is not shifting anymore and blaming everyone outside for what is really your responsibility.
Yes.
So we have to get back to those roots in order to start seeing this shift happen. It's going to take some time because again, we weren't paying attention. So now we have to even relearn how
Yeah.
to do these things again and do so because it's not comfortable for you to talk anymore where we used to talk and now we don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore.
And can I say that technology definitely has limited our need for community because we have cell phones, so we don't need to call the house all the time to see if the kids are home and how things are doing. or we have cameras outside our house, so we don't depend on our neighbors to tell us what's going on. Or, the sense of community on our block is now shifted to whatever communities you belong to online. So we've kind of come away from, I guess, person to person, and depend more on technology and social media. And things go so fast that, if something's happened, by the 2 seconds later, you have the notification on your phone. So you don't have to wait till you get home for somebody to tell you, to have a whole discussion at the dinner table, because you already know about it.
We are relational creatures, and when you move away from relating, problems happen. We've moved away from relating. We've moved away from from foundational components that is cornerstones of humanity. We need to relate, and because we don't relate, we've gotten apathetic. I don't care nothing about you. I'll blow your head off because I don't care anything about you. You're not human to me. You're not. I don't have any investment in you. So I'll blow your head off and not lose any sleep over. Go have dinner right afterwards. So again, we got to get back to understanding that, even that, if you're one of those conspiracy theorists, you can look at that and go, wow, I wonder if that was a part of the master plan.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's fact.
Intentional.
Yes.
We just fell for it.
Correct.
Yes. So how do y'all feel about getting back to other cultures? Because I mean, we're all in the same planet, same thing with same social media. All the kids are seeing the same videos and same music they're listening to, but we're the ones that having this adverse effect. That's having these problems. So how do y'all feel about that? Like everybody else can listen to the same rap music that's promoting violence and death, but their kids aren't going out and repeating it.
I mean, I think it just goes back to, again, being lax, not having those proper discussions, and just letting them go ahead. You going outside to play, go ahead, or you going down the street to play a smack, go ahead. You know what I mean? No, let's sit down and discuss, this or that, or put your phone down for a second, so we can have a conversation. It's that social media era. It's that doing away from, just like Fran said, just doing away with talking and speaking, because it's about technology now, and there's no sit downs anymore. There's no meeting at the gate and you talking to your neighbor about different things, or you having that parent to son or daughter conversation about your day. Something as simple as your day. You're going one way, your parents are going the other way. It's no tight knit. We sit down, we're discussing things. It's just it's like 9:15. You know what I mean? One way and going the other. So I just think we've gone away from that. And it's very bad. Because you don't really how well do you know what your children are doing? If you're not engaging with them.
Yeah. The other important factor as we look at culture, and being that I've had to engage with clients and families from different cultures. So cultural competent, yes, I'm there, but there is a breakdown in each culture, but maybe not to the extent where we are. I think that a lot of cultures, they fought to keep morals and values in their home that we kind of let go. In the sense that I'm gonna be 40 years old this year, and I cannot walk into my friend's house who happens to be Haitian without greeting her mother with a kiss. And it's not because I was told to do that, but we've been friends so long, I'm groomed to doing that, and you have to show that level of respect to everyone in that home. When I'm visiting, when me and my daughter is visiting, we're sitting to the table and we're actually talking to each other. We've kind of let go a lot of morals and values that our parents instilled in us, and or that our parents kind of fell off the wayside with. And I think that has been one of the strong points, is how certain cultures compared to ours have stayed in the game, if you will. They've stayed in the game and they've tried, even when their children became resistant and they fought and they put attitudes. You caught some level of you caught some level of a wrath, and you had to get it together real quick. And not necessarily, in a backlash type way, but you knew you had to get it together real quick. So, we grew up, some of us grew up with Big Mama, and Big Mama kept us in line, but, when the Big Mamas, you know, died off, and
Start watching
when
Lifetime,
yeah, we kind of lost our morals and our values.
and
And
everybody
sometimes,
concerned with they.
people now today, they still kind of make fun of me because sometimes I'm calling my son. I'm like, we're about to sit down and eat. Like, where are you? Like, they're like, well, you still sit down and eat? I'm like, that's important for me. Do I do it every day? No, because of where I am now. This pandemic has just really thrown off my work schedule, but it's something that I really strive to do because I want to set those standards for him when he gets out and get a family. I want to keep that value in my home with my children and my significant other. But I think we really fell off the wayside with fighting harder than the other cultures to keep that going in our homes.
Another thing that we've done is, to go back to what you talked about and the messaging that's in rap music, understanding that some of the messaging, first and foremost, we're not even paying attention to the messaging. We're not even understanding. See, half the times we don't even understand the terminology, and I'm so severely guilty of that, and don't even know what they're talking about. But when you dive and take a deeper dive into the messaging and understanding that, it's coming in a medium that may appeal to your black boy or your little black girl more so than it might, might appeal to their Caucasian counterparts, where they might listen to some rock or some heavy metal that might appeal to them more. We have to be mindful of the messaging that's in rap music and the messaging that our children are consuming and what they're now doing. Again, we're talking about young people that are still developing. And so that messaging is serious business because, again, the industry is there to make money. The industry is there to make money by any means necessary, and we need to understand that they're not here to cultivate and raise your children. And so they're there to make money. And so when we don't understand that there's this pervasive messaging that our children are consuming, and we don't take some ownership over, listen, I need you to understand that there's certain things you can and cannot do. And I know what this music is saying, but understanding that music has always been a medium that is, it's so powerful because
Yes.
you can listen, you can put on a hook right now with different songs when we might have been growing up, and it's like, oh, that's my jam.
That's a
It takes you
soundtrack to
back
our
to a
life.
time. It takes you back to a place. It is so powerful, and that's why some of this messaging is as convincing, and this messaging sometimes it gets across in such a way that the kids buy into it because, again, music is a powerful medium. You cannot underestimate this. You cannot underestimate it. And so what we have done is we've turned a blind eye because we don't identify with, back in the day with, certain rocks, you knew exactly what they were saying. LL Cool J, come on, I need love. We could sing that from start to finish because we knew but some of the stuff that's on there now, you have no clue what they're talking about, but the young people know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And rather than us kind of dive in and figure out, what exactly are you consuming, we're just kind of leaving it up to that, and then understanding again that's a powerful medium. We're taking it way too lightly, and the impact that it has, because some of our kids, they get up in the morning, they put them buds in, and they're consuming that from morning, all sometimes in school. You go to a school sometimes, I go on the school grounds sometimes, they've got the buds on in class and they're consuming it in class. So you can't tell me after a while that this isn't really permeating.
It
You can't
is.
tell me it isn't. It's powerful.
Most of the
Music
time,
is
music though,
powerful.
kids use music to express themselves, stuff they can't say, and they get it through the music. And
Yeah.
that music becomes a
Yeah.
soundtrack. Like, and when we were young, our music was the soundtrack to our whole existence.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Yeah. I also want to point out that, and I'm not making any excuses and I'm not condoning anybody's lack of staying staying firm within their homes. But there has also been a shift in the family breakdown where the time that most of us may have had really stay on top of our children, or to really ensure that our households were functioning properly. You've done chores, you read, you did whatever you had to do to kind of redirect that behavior. There's been a breakdown, and this is no secret, and this is not something that's under the rug. You've had a huge increase of absent fathers. You've had an increase of absent mothers. And then you've had those who really tried to stay abreast and really tried to stay on top of things. But now, you know what, I got to work 2 jobs to make sure to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. And my mom will watch them a certain time, but she got this and that. There's been a whole new revolution of how our families are set up. And when I say our, I'm not just referring to African American families. I'm just saying period overall. There's been a breakdown in the family to the point where the things that you and I may have stayed on top of, other individuals don't do that, and they haven't found the balance with their social circumstances and their financial circumstances and their own mental health circumstances to stay abreast on top of what their children's mental health is being nurtured as. And again, I'm not making an excuse. I'm just speaking on what I've seen happen and what I've witnessed, because I've had to treat the young man or the young woman who older sister was there to sign, because during the session, because mom was at work. But this is the person you're around, and this is the person that's feeding into your spirit, because they're the adults are having to do what they have to do. That only makes me think about what they're learning, or what's being poured into their spirits as the family goes through the transition. But for the single mothers and the single fathers, I hear you, I feel you, and I support you. I'm not throwing any judgment. I'm just saying in some cases, this has what's been evident in some of the cases that I've had to be engaged in.
And we can't deny that has been a extremely impactful in terms of the direction. I mean, we can deny it, we can turn a blind eye, we can say, I'm a superwoman, so, I didn't need him to help me, or he can say, I'm a superman, so I didn't need her, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, you both needed. You both needed. You serve two distinct purposes. And so when one's not holding up their end of the bargain, or again, I'm not saying you have to be together. You don't have to be together. And it's incumbent, some of the hard conversations that I have, especially with young women, and I'm going to put it out there. Again, if you're thin-skinned, I'm not the one. Some of the things, y'all might not be together, but y'all still have children to raise. So you need to tighten up, and we need to be able to be in place to raise these kids. And so you've got to figure out, y'all got to figure out how you're going to make this thing work, because the children become the casualty of your war. And so we need to figure this out. And we need to understand even that is part of the big, this huge problem that we're facing. It's become so unsurmountable because, again, we've fallen away from being together as a community. But in terms of just being parents, again, if you happen not to still be in a relationship, you don't have the tools and the skills to remain cordial enough to co-parent. We don't do a good job of that in our community at all. It becomes Armageddon. It becomes, police call after police call. It becomes all these different things. And it's like, come on. Our children are casualties when we can't figure out how we can coexist. Even if we're not together, we need to get it together.
I have one question for all of you. Would it be possible for you guys to come back again and we can continue this? Because this is a great conversation we're having. But unfortunately, we ran over time.
I knew we weren't going to be able to cover everything we want to get into.
But that happens when, we get lost in the moment. We're having really good conversation, and there's still so much things we would like to talk about. So, I don't know when you guys will be available to do a part 2 to this again. I guess we'll keep in touch with you guys. Or?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because unfortunately we have to close out. It's like
let's give everybody a closing moment. Any departing words you want to leave us with? Something that can stick to us that we can go think about until the next time we can get this panel going.
Oh, shout out to DJ Dave Jordan. Got to do that.
Yeah, we did get a couple of questions. What's up, Dave? What's happening?
I mean, I for one want to say that the ladies that are on this podcast, when I reached out to you, I specifically had these three in mind because I knew that they would uh, come with their expertise and the topics that we had. I had no one else in mind other than those three because I know that they would tackle it head on. And just from seeing the different things that they are doing, within the community, social media, and things like that, and I wanted them to give the viewers a perspective of their own and have them to build their platform even bigger with just speaking about things that they've seen, things that they're doing. And, I wanted to ultimately play the background, say a few things.
Hey, I was.
And just let them just dive in, which they did. I didn't really get a chance to say much of anything.
They got busy.
Yeah, it was their show. It was their show.
But yeah, I just, I wanted to have them to just, just do their thing. So again, I had them in mind, nobody else but those three, so they could just really, give the viewers some perspective on, things that are very important within our Black community. Mental health, that's up there at the very top, if not anything else. Anger management, that's up there. And definitely the gun violence and different things that are going on within the community. But, we just wanted to give the viewers some things that people are not talking about, and we want to step up to the plate and give them what they need to hear.
Absolutely.
They need a lot more too.
Oh, I'm sure they have plenty more. I got a few things, but yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but
we can make this a regular thing, man. And meet up once a month and hit a topic and go. But give the people your information, brother, so we could spread this word out where they can find you, and then.
Well, you can find me because I'm in transition with doing the website, but you can find me Instagram C.A.L.M. 247. That's C.A.L.M. 247. So you can shoot me a message on there. Also, email address rogers.delvin@calm-247.com.
Sounds good. Ladies, who wants to take it?
Okay. I would love to have you all a part of my Instagram family so that you can continue to stay inspired and get the necessary information and or resources that you may need and or benefit from for adults and children. I'm driven, the number 2, Inspire LLC on Instagram, and the Bethany House on Instagram. And if any of you feel like you want to reach out, feel free to DM me, send me a message, and or by email at driven_number 2_inspire@yahoo.com, and the Bethany House Inc. @yahoo.com. And thank you all. It's been a pleasure engaging with you all tonight. I'm really, really excited
Thank
about
you.
what's to come out of this.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm France Marie Bullard from Aceimpact. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and the web under Aceimpactllc.com. Thank you for the invitation to speak. I'm glad that there's a way for me to tie the programming to these resources, and I'm hoping that I can actually reach out to you guys to maybe facilitate some of these workshops for these kids at the schools or at the programs that I am in. That's a great way to kind of tie services to the parents, because sometimes we can see who needs the help, but there's, we need those people like Hicks and Fahie and Rogers to step in the gaps. I'm excited about all the work, and I'm excited that there are people, and there's many more that are willing to do the work to build stronger children, so that way we can repair our communities.
Great.
And I am Laurenia Fahie, Strategysessionsllc.com. um, uh, is my email, and you can reach me on Instagram at Strategy Sessions LLC, or on Facebook, same Strategy Sessions LLC. Um, and my takeaway is, listen, this can be done. It's going to be incumbent upon us to step up and do the hard work, but we are more than capable of fixing this problem. We're more than capable. Thank you for having me, and absolutely, whenever you need me back, just holla. I'll be back.
Yes.
For sure. We're gonna definitely organize this, and we can make this a thing where we can get on here and get all this type of information out to the people and start building a bigger coalition. So one thing I want to say to you guys, man, really appreciate y'all, and I noticed that you guys are super passionate about what y'all doing, man.
Yes.
And it's contagious. It's really, make you a little bit emotional, man.
It just makes you want to go out in the street and go to work, for real.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And if I could just leave a few words of encouragement on our viewers, on those who are engaged right now, and it is if you felt alone in this fight, this should demonstrate to you tonight that you have people. Forget about our degrees, forget about our professions. You have people, mothers, fathers, that are willing to stand in the gap with you, and that we really want to make a change. So I really just want you all to stay encouraged and empowered. And if you are currently going through something, I'm hoping that you find the right coping skills and know the right support systems to help you and your family. And stay encouraged, because as they stated, they plan to bring this platform and make it what it is going to be. I'm gonna speak it into existence, whether it's with us or any other individuals that come along. But just stay encouraged and empowered, because we stand with you. There are some of us that are really standing with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wish we could stay on, but it's getting late. So once again, I want to give you guys a big round of applause. It was a pleasure. First time meeting everybody. And until we get to the next event, thank y'all.
Good night,
Y'all
everybody.
have a good night and stay safe.
Good night.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. All right.
Also want to give a shout out to Tiffy, Tamika, Angie, Achille, DJ Dave Jordan, Layla, I think it's 2020 and 2040, and Chariot. I hope I pronounced that right.
You wrote all those names down?
Yeah, I wrote them down, man.
Oh, man. You was
Those are only the people who commented. I don't know who else is out there listening. But, yeah, I got to acknowledge people who take the time to listen to us.
That's what's up. And if you did listen, or, all our loyal listeners and tuning in, tell a friend, man. Let's get the platform bigger, man. Let's get more eyes and ears in, because we got people giving you